Okay, let's unpack this. Can you even imagine being told, by God to do something so personal and honestly pretty scandalous, like marrying someone known for being unfaithful?
Hmm.
And then it gets even wilder, naming your kids things like, judgment is coming, no mercy, you're not my people.
Yeah.
It feels like setting up this incredibly dark symbolic play, doesn't it? What's really going on here? Why this shocking command?
It is a really dramatic start, for sure, and it throws us right into the deep end of what we're looking at today. We're exploring parts of the Book of Hosea from the King James Version.
Hosea, right. Now, maybe not everyone listening has this book front of mind. So who was Hosea? What was his world like?
Well, Hosea was a prophet, and he was active during a really volatile time for both Israel in the north and Judah in the south.
Okay.
You're talking about the reigns of several kings, back-to-back: Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah in Judah, and Jeroboam over in Israel. So politically, things were shaky, but the big thing for Hosea's message was the religious climate. People were seriously turning away, a major departure from their covenant with God.
So lots of upheaval,
Hmm.
politically, religiously. That makes this command about the wife of whoredoms, it makes it hit even harder.
Yeah.
It's clearly not just about his personal life, right? It's symbolism.
Oh, absolutely loaded with symbolism.
So what's the core message we're aiming to sort of pull out of these chapters? What's our goal for this deep dive?
Our mission really is to get to the heart of Hosea's prophecies. We want to understand the powerful symbols baked into his own life story and what God was communicating through that.
Okay.
We'll definitely run into some passages that sound harsh, judgment heavy, but underneath we're looking for those themes of betrayal, the consequences, yeah, but also critically that underlying current of hope and eventual restoration.
Like looking at a broken relationship on a massive scale, but one that could still be mended.
Exactly. The anatomy of a divine human breakup, but with the potential for getting back together.
All right, let's get right into it then. This symbolic marriage. Hosea marries Gomer and these kids.
Yeah.
Jezreel, Lo Ruhama, Lo Ami. What's the immediate meaning there?
Yeah, those names, they weren't just names. They were like living prophecies.
Mhm.
Jezreel, that name itself carried echoes of past violence and signaled God's judgment coming for the ruling family and really all of northern Israel.
Okay.
Then Lower Hama, literally no mercy, a stark message that God was, for that time, withdrawing his compassion from Israel.
Wow.
And finally, Lo Ami, meaning not my people. That's a direct hit on the covenant relationship. It's basically saying this agreement, it's broken. These kids were like walking billboards of God's message.
That's incredibly powerful imagery. And this term whoredom, it's used a lot. It's metaphorical, right? Not literal prostitution.
Exactly, yes. In Hosea and often in the Old Testament, whoredom or harlotry is this really potent metaphor for Israel's idolatry. It means turning away from their exclusive relationship with God to chase after other gods. Baal was a big one then, a Canaanite deity. The text says it plainly. The land have committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord.
Right.
And later it gets specific, like mentioning how they use the grain, wine, oil, silver, and gold God gave them to worship Baal, or sacrificing on hills under trees because it felt good.
So that spiritual cheating,
Yeah.
it had real consequences lined up. What kind of punishments are we talking about?
Oh, they were severe threats of public shame, being stripped bare, left destitute like a desert,
Yeah.
losing all the essentials: grain, wine, oil, wool, flax, even silver and gold. All things they should have recognized as God's gifts.
Mhm.
And then there's the big one: exile. Being scattered among other nations, like it says later, they shall not dwell in the Lord's land, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt, and they shall eat unclean things in Assyria. It's a total breakdown of their life, their security.
It sounds like a complete unraveling. But amidst all that doom for Israel, there's a little aside, isn't there? Something about mercy for Judah. Why that difference?
Yeah, that's in chapter 1, verse 7. It says, God will have mercy on Judah, the southern kingdom, and save them directly, not through military might.
Interesting.
It suggests that while Israel, the northern kingdom, was facing this immediate harsh judgment, Judah perhaps still had a thread of faithfulness, or at least was being offered a different kind of deliverance. It shows God differentiates.
And the story doesn't just end with judgment for Israel, does it? There's this incredible turnaround hinted at, that future where they become as numerous as the sand. That's quite a shift.
It's a huge shift. Hosea 1.10 gives that amazing picture. The number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, and where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God.
Wow, complete reversal.
Total reversal. from Loami to sons of the living God. And then verse 11 even talks about Judah and Israel reuniting under one leader. So yes, even after the dire warnings, there's this profound promise of restoration and unity.
Then chapter 2 seems to pivot again. There's this instruction to call each other Ami, my people, and Ruhama, mercy. That sounds like the beginning of reconciliation.
It really does. It signals that potential turning point. The whole tone starts to shift a bit. God is shown almost like a betrayed husband pleading, plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife. Let her therefore put away her whoredoms. It's emotional, it's personal.
And the way back seems to involve hitting rock bottom first. This idea that Israel will chase after these other lovers, find nothing, and then remember how good things were before.
Exactly that. Hosea 2.7 lays it out. She shall follow after her lovers, but she shall not overtake them. Then shall she say, I will go and return to my first husband, for then was it better with me than now. It's that disillusionment, that realization that the alternatives are empty, that sparks the desire to return. Sometimes you only appreciate things once they're gone, right?
So true. And then comes this really gentle imagery. God luring her into the wilderness, speaking comfortingly. That's such a contrast to the judgment talk.
It's a beautiful contrast, and it shows God taking the initiative to reconcile. The wilderness, usually a place of trial, becomes the space for renewed closeness. The Valley of Achor, a place linked to trouble, becomes a door of hope.
A door of hope. I like that.
And the relationship goal, to be so close that God is called Ishi, my husband, intimate partner, not just Bali, which is more like my master. It's about restoring deep affection and trust.
And this restoration, it seems bigger than just God and Israel. It talks about making covenants with animals, with the creation itself.
Yes, that's Hosea 2.18. It expands the vision. A covenant with the beasts, the birds, the creeping things, removing weapons of war. It points towards this complete cosmic peace. Shalom, everything back in harmony.
And that language of betrothal, it really hammers home God's commitment despite everything.
Oh, verses 19 and 20 are just incredible. I will betroth thee unto me forever, in righteousness and in judgment, and in loving kindness and in mercies. I will even betroth thee unto me in faithfulness, and thou shalt know the Lord. It's this profound statement of God's unwavering, faithful love. Even after such betrayal, the offer of this deep, committed relationship is still there.
Which leads perfectly into chapter 3, where Hosea acts it all out. He literally goes and buys back Gomer, his unfaithful wife. That's, wow. Talk about putting your life where your mouth is.
It's an incredibly powerful piece of performance art, almost. A lived prophecy. He pays the price, 15 pieces of silver and some barley, mirroring God's relentless love for Israel, willing to redeem them even from their self-inflicted mess. And then he tells her, basically, okay, now you need to wait. No more playing the harlot, no other men, just wait for me, and I'll wait for you. It parallels this period of purification Israel needs to go through.
And that waiting period is described as being without all the usual stuff, king, prince, sacrifices, idols, followed by this return to seeking God and David, their king. What's that about?
Hosea 3.4-5 sketches it out. A time where Israel will be stripped of all the external structures they relied on, good or bad. No king, no official worship, no idols, a kind of limbo. But afterward, the text says, they will return. They'll seek the Lord and David their king, which likely points to the promised righteous king from David's line. They'll come back with reverence, seeking God's goodness. It suggests this stripping away is necessary to get back to what's essential.
Okay, so we've got the marriage drama, the symbolism, the promise of hope down the line. But chapters 4-7 really seem to dig into the why. Why was this judgment needed? What exactly was going wrong?
Right, chapters 4-7 are like the prosecution's case, laying out the evidence, and it's grim. You see a total breakdown of society's foundations. Hosea 4 says, flat out, no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land.
Just a void.
Yeah. Instead, it's swearing, lying, killing, stealing, adultery, just rampant lawlessness. And the consequence, the land shall mourn. It shows this deep connection between human behavior and the well-being of, well, everything.
And it wasn't just the average person, right? The leaders, priests, prophets, they get called.
Oh, big time. Hosea slams the religious leaders, the priests, the prophets. Instead of guiding people to God, they were part of the problem, leading people astray.
Always.
He says the mother, the nation will be destroyed because of the leader's failure. And that incredibly stark line in 4.6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. It really underscores how vital it is to actually know and live God's ways. Ignorance, willful ignorance, is fatal.
It sounds like the attraction to other forms of worship was really strong, almost addictive. Whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart.
Yes, exactly. It's portrayed as this intoxicating mix. Sensual pleasure, the excitement of pagan ritual sacrificing on mountains, burning incense under nice shady trees, it all clouds their judgment, pulls their hearts away from God.
Okay.
It captures that, that seductive power of things that seem easier or more immediately gratifying than genuine faith.
And we see that Israel-Judah comparison again. Israel's gone deep into this harlotry, but Judah is warned, don't you go down that road.
Yeah, Hosea 4.15 is like, look, Israel's already playing the harlot, but Judah, you still have a choice. Don't follow them into this. It shows there's still a chance for Judah to avoid the same fate. Israel is called a backsliding heifer, stubborn, refusing to go the right way. A warning, really.
Then chapter 5 uses this really vivid language judgment coming like a snare and a net. It feels inescapable.
It does. It paints judgment as unavoidable, closing in on everyone, priests, royals, the whole nation. And it says the spirit of whoredoms is so deep in them, they actually can't turn back to God at this point.
Really? They can't?
It's what it says. Their seeking God becomes futile because he's withdrawn. It suggests there's a point of no return, or at least a point where the consequences of persistent rejection become inevitable.
And then God's actions are described with these really potent metaphors, like a moth or rottenness, or even a lion.
Yeah, those images are designed to be felt. God as a moth or rottenness suggests this slow, hidden decay from within, a gradual weakening.
Okay.
But then God, like a lion, tearing them apart, that sudden, violent judgment, it shows the different facets of how consequences manifest. It's not abstract, it's visceral.
Chapter 6 starts off sounding hopeful, like they're repenting, but then it pulls the rug out. Your goodness is like a morning cloud. It just vanishes.
Exactly. Hosea cuts right through their superficial, let's return to the Lord talk. It's all surface level. Their goodness is fleeting, like dew that evaporates as soon as the sun hits it.
Right.
And that leads to maybe one of the most famous lines in the book, Hosea 6.6. For I desired mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. God wants genuine relationship, compassion, knowing him intimately, not just empty rituals.
That's powerful. Then chapter 7 keeps drilling down on the sin, using this image of an oven, heated by a baker. What's that getting at?
The oven metaphor, yeah, it's about the internal state. Their hearts are like an oven, constantly hot with wicked desires, stoked by their plotting. Even when they're not actively sinning, the fire is banked, ready to flare up.
Always simmering.
Always simmering. And the really bleak part, there is none among them that calleth unto me. Complete alienation, no genuine prayer, no reaching out to God.
And Ephraim's, that's another name for Israel, right, is called a cake not turned. That's such a strange, specific image.
It is memorable, isn't it? A cake not turned. It's half-baked, burnt on one side, raw on the other.
Useless, basically.
Pretty much. It represents Israel's state of being mixed up, compromised. They're mingling with other nations, adopting their ways, but not fully committed to anything, especially not to God. They're neither one thing nor the other, and it leaves them ineffective, flawed.
So the final stretch, chapters 8 to 14, this seems to be where the consequences really land, but also where those threads of hope keep reappearing. Let's get into that last section.
Yeah, these chapters really bring it all to a head. The judgment feels almost inevitable now. Hosea 8 starts with an eagle-swift, predatory judgment descending, and that famous line, sowing the wind and reaping the whirlwind. It perfectly captures how their small, foolish choices escalate into massive destruction.
Right. Actions have consequences, amplified.
Exactly. And their political maneuvering, running to Assyria, trying to make deals with Egypt, it's constantly condemned as futile.
Yeah.
Trying to find security in human power instead of God.
And it seems like the better things got for them materially, the worse they got spiritually. More wealth meant more idols.
That's a key point Hosea makes. Chapter 10 says, basically, the more prosperous they became, the more altars and idols they built. Their blessings actually fueled their unfaithfulness instead of gratitude.
Yeah, sobering.
It leads directly to this idea of a divided heart, which God says he will judge. It's a real warning about prosperity's potential dangers, how easily it can become a distraction.
But even in the midst of all this, chapter 11 hits distantly. It looks back, talks about God's love for Israel like a parent for a child.
Chapter 11 is incredibly moving. It recalls the Exodus. When Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. It paints this picture of God's deep, nurturing, foundational love.
Yeah.
And it contrasts that tenderness so sharply with Israel's constant tendency to wander off, to forget that love, despite God teaching them to walk, holding them. It even gives the sense of God's own anguish, wrestling between justice and love. How shall I give thee up, Ephraim?
You really feel that tension. And it's that love, ultimately, that seems to open the door for that future restoration promise again. People returning, trembling.
Yes, exactly. Despite the judgment that is coming, Hosea 11 ends with this vision. They shall walk after the Lord. He shall roar like a lion, then the children shall tremble from the west, and I will place them in their houses. It's a promise of gathering them back, bringing them home, driven by God's powerful call. His love endures.
And the whole book wraps up in chapter 14 with this final direct appeal, a call to come back.
It's a beautiful conclusion, really, a clear invitation. O Israel, return unto the Lord thy God, for thou hast fallen by thine iniquity. It even gives them the words to say, forgive us, receive us graciously, we'll reject our idols and alliances.
Take words with you.
Exactly. And in response, God promises healing, free love, restoration, imagery of dew, lilies, deep roots, fragrant trees. It's all about life and flourishing again.
And that very last verse is like a final piece of wisdom for the road, isn't it?
Oh.
The ways of the Lord are right. They just walk in them, but transgressors fall.
Pretty clear. Very clear. It sums it all up. There are right paths and wrong paths, and our choices determine whether we walk upright or stumble. It's a timeless truth.
So, bringing this all together then, we've gone through this really intense, extended metaphor, the broken marriage, showing God's relationship with Israel. We saw the reasons for the breakdown, mainly that persistent spiritual unfaithfulness, chasing idols, and the tough consequences that followed. But woven through it all, like this incredibly strong thread, is God's love, a love that just keeps offering a way back through real repentance towards full restoration. You see that cycle, sin, judgment, but always, always the offer of hope.
Precisely. And the fascinating thing for you listening is how relevant these ancient themes still feel, right? Think about it in your own life. Broken trust, maybe not literal idols, but the things we chase after that pull us away from what matters.
Our modern idols.
Exactly. And that possibility of redemption, of things being made right again. How does that resonate with your own experiences, your own relationships?
It really does make you think. And that final idea that even when things seem really bad, consequences are real, but that door for return, for reconciliation, it's still presented. It says so much about, well, about human weakness maybe, but also about the amazing potential for renewal.
Yeah.
It leaves you with that question, doesn't it? What's the fallow ground, the hard, unprepared soil in your own life that needs breaking up? You know, so that something good, something real can actually take root and grow. That's definitely something to chew on.